Hello and welcome to the CEC Gurukul live lecture series on Introduction to Indian Philosophy. Today I'll be talking about the ethics of the Bhagavad Gita. If you remember, in the last lecture I discussed with you the first or the main narrative of the Bhagavad Gita. There are two more narratives which are of course contained in the main narrative, which I wish to discuss with you before I begin with the ethics of the Bhagavad Gita. Now let us start with the second narrative of the Bhagavad Gita, which is regarding the history of Indian philosophy. Now, if the Bhagavad Gita were only read as a text on the history of philosophy, it would not only be irrelevant to most, it would not even have much impact on students of philosophy. Its impact gets its potency from its being woven in with the psychological and the practical ethical journey of Arjuna. I try to explain here the Bhagavad Gita as a philosophical ethical text, and the normative nature of ethics fits the normative nature of poetry like a glove, as Aristotle states. The journey of Indian philosophy begins in chapter 2, where the Sankhya philosophy's distinction between body, mind and soul is described, in which the soul is immortal and imperishable, whereas the body and mind are mortal and perishable. Karma Yoga or Nishkam Karma is also introduced, in which one learns to perform and control one's actions without attachment, which is required for God realization. The journey continues through the chapters as the Sankhya notion of Prakriti is explained in terms of the three gunas of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. An understanding of the three gunas leads to the overcoming of desires, which is essential for detached action or Nishkam Karma. The breakup of society on the basis of predominant gunas into the four varnas is laid out. This is a division of labor in society. Plato, the famous Greek philosopher, had a similar one in his Republic. A karma yogi in modern terms is one who performs his duties according to her or his capabilities without regard to consequential gains. Jnana Yoga, which is pursuit of knowledge, and Karma Yoga, which is pursuit of action, are presented as separate paths to God realization as well as necessary complements of each other. Sankhya Yoga demonstrates how the soul can and should control the mind and the body. The nature of the absolute is gradually revealed. Now, then comes the discussion of moksha as the state where the cycle of birth and rebirth is transcended. This is the desired state of the soul. Then the nature of divinity is revealed, and it is described how devotees need to perform their duties in worldly life in order to reach moksha. Finally, the immortality of the soul and the cycle of births and rebirths are discussed, as well as how to get out of the cycle. The scriptures are also invoked as guiding humans in determining what is right and what is wrong. Now, chapter 18 is the synthesis of the history of philosophy so far related, and how operating at the highest stage of sattva or goodness of each of the 6 dimensions of knowledge, action, agent, understanding, steadfastness and happiness by the soul governing the mind and body, one is able to go through life performing right and dutiful action, and thereby doing what one needs to do in order to reach liberation or moksha. Now let us discuss the third narrative of the Bhagavad Gita, and this is regarding moksha and karma. Again, this narrative is already discussed in a way, and I turn briefly instead to the psychological and ethical implications of the theory of karma and reincarnation. Karma can be a proactive theory of action from a deep ethical and a psychological point of view. Whatever action one chooses to perform, right or wrong, moral or immoral, one begins to accumulate good or bad karma. One need not go to the next life to enjoy the benefits of accumulating good karma or suffer the harms of accumulating bad karma. These may come in this life itself. Hence, one must perform all actions responsibly. That is, whenever I choose an action, knowing that it is right or wrong, then I am responsible for it, and even the consequences of it that I know follow. So, I am responsible for the accumulation of good and bad karma. And this brings the theory of karma closer to existentialism, in which I am responsible for all my actions and the consequences of it, and I am condemned to take responsibility without any escape or bad faith. Now, let us begin with the ethics of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, ethics is concerned with which actions should we perform. We need first to answer the question which actions are right and which are wrong. Socrates asked, "How do I live a good life?" And if Hinduism is a way of life, then like Socrates, we as Hindus are asking the same question every day. Every Hindu is a philosopher because he begins and ends with the question of how should I lead and conduct my life every day. The Bhagavad Gita, as we all know, is part of the Mahabharata. However, it is also autonomous in some ways, even though it is very much an integral part of the narrative of the Mahabharata. Hindus recite the Bhagavad Gita daily without paying attention to how it fits into the context of the Mahabharata. Clearly, Bhagavad Gita is the holy text of the Hindus, and this is why in the courtroom when the judge says, "Please repeat, I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth," you put your hand on a Bible if you're a Christian, on the Quran if you're a Muslim, and on the Bhagavad Gita if you are a Hindu. What is the relationship of telling the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, to the content of the Bhagavad Gita? The fact is that hardly any Hindu asks this question when she or he puts her or his hand on the Bhagavad Gita and takes the oath. After the end of this lecture, I hope to convince you that no other text of Indian philosophy provides a more lucid, theoretical account of truth, and why telling the truth is the right course of action than the Bhagavad Gita. Now, the Bhagavad Gita is a paradigm philosophical text because of the extensive and intricate theoretical and practical ethics contained in it. If every Hindu made a sincere attempt to understand the Bhagavad Gita as an ethical text, as good as it comes, then when they take the oath in the court, there will be absolutely no faltering on their part, because they will know the content of what they are placing their hand on. The Bhagavad Gita provides the complete and comprehensive answer to the question, how should I act in any given situation? Particularly, if I am caught in a dilemma then how do I decide which of the two mutually exclusive alternatives to choose? The attempt to answer this question is what ethics is all about. I know this as a teacher and a student of ethics. More importantly, on the practical side, this is a question that everyone is faced with in their lives at important junctures. The Bhagavad Gita provides us with the framework required to answer this question. Let us be careful. It does not provide us with the answer, but only with the schema of the answer. The answer in each case may be different depending on the context, but the answer will ultimately not come from the pages of the Bhagavad Gita, but from our individual wisdom and volition. And this is also written in the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, as I will unfold. In the Bhagavad Gita, the choice of the action to be performed is on the volition of the agent of action, and the responsibility of the consequences of the action lies squarely on the shoulders of the agent. The agent cannot shift the responsibility for one's action and its consequences onto the Bhagavad Gita and lay the blame on it. Neither should one claim that the praiseworthiness of my action is to be shifted to the Bhagavad Gita. However, we can praise the Bhagavad Gita for providing us with the perfect schema of theoretical and practical ethics to guide us through difficult dilemmas in our lives. Arjuna is in a deep, difficult dilemma as to whether or not he should join the battlefield of the war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Being a Pandava, Arjun will, of course, fight on the side of the Pandavas. But if he joins the battle, he will be killing his own cousins, uncles, teachers, and friends. Why should he do that? Is any war that requires the killing of your own kith and kin is a just war? With his chariot parked in between the two warring sides and his head in his hands, Lord Krishna faces the questions of Arjuna. And what unfolds is the text of the Bhagavad Gita. It is very important to remember how the Bhagavad Gita begins. Arjuna is faced with a grave moral dilemma. He has to choose between A and B, which are mutually exclusive. Arjuna can either choose to join the battle on the side of the Pandavas or to not fight and sit on the sidelines. An important factor here is that Arjuna is the finest archer of his times. If he joins the battle, the Pandavas have a greater chance of winning. And if he does not join the battle, they have a greater chance of losing. At the beginning, Arjuna pleads and asks Krishna, how can it be right to kill my own cousins, uncles, and teachers? Some people think the answer is simple. Arjuna is a Kshatriya. It is his duty to join the battle. Sitting on the sidelines is not an option. He also has a duty to his family. So obviously, he will join the battle on the side of the Pandavas. Does Krishna think that this answer is simple? Obviously not. If Krishna thought the answer was simple and straightforward, he would have told Arjuna something like this. Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya. The Varna of a Kshatriya is to fight bravely in the battlefield. The battlefield is in front of your eyes. So, go and fight bravely. Then, the Pandavas, he would also say, the Pandavas are right and the Kauravas are wrong. because the kingdom under the Pandavas will be a more just society than the kingdom under the Kauravas. So, go and join the religious battle against the Kauravas. And he will continue, you are the best archer in the world. If you join, surely some of your cousins and uncles will be killed by you. But if you do not join, more of your brothers, uncles and nephews on the Pandava side will be killed without you being able to protect them, and they are the closest to you. So, go and join the battle. And he would further say, I am the Lord Krishna. You have faith in me, and that is why you are asking for my advice. You accept me as the Lord. I command you to join the battle against the Kauravas. So, go and fight. That is it. Now, if Krishna would have taken this course, then there was no need for the long discourse that ensues in the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, the simple answer won't work. One would think that only the Brahmins are required to listen and understand such a discourse on theory. Why does Krishna then subject Arjuna, a Kshatriya, to listen to and understand this discourse? It is surely not Arjuna's duty to do so, because if he spends all his time listening to discourses, when will he have time to fight the battle which is his duty? To understand this, let us begin with the following question. Why is the discourse given to Arjuna alone, not to any of the other Pandava brothers? Just because you are a Kshatriya, it does not mean that you cannot reflect on issues and situations. Arjuna is really despondent on the thought of killing his relatives. So, he wants to make sure that what he is doing is the right thing and not just assume that it is the right thing. In doing so, Arjuna is a philosopher. Whereas his other brothers perhaps do not face the dilemma and unassumingly accept this as the right thing to do. Moral dilemmas are the core of ethics. If no dilemmas are involved, even though you are the agent of action, you may not invest so much time and effort in the choice and follow the guidelines of other people and other sources such as internet. In a dilemma, one has to choose between two mutually exclusive actions, and both seem to lead to unhappy consequences. Hence, the choice is not easy at all. So, ethical theories are tested on the basis of how well they resolve moral dilemmas. If one theory is better than others in resolving moral dilemmas, then one is likely to choose that over others. Ethics is concerned with ordinary day-to-day life, with how we make important decisions. We do not have to understand or follow any theory in order to act morally. That is, to do with the right thing and avoid doing the wrong or forbidden thing. So, all of us, whether we know it or not, are following some theory when we are making ethical decisions. In the academic discipline of ethics, it is often argued that different theories debate about how people justify their actions as being right or wrong. What is the reasoning that they use? A person who makes a decision may not be consciously aware that she or he is using this reasoning, but she or he actually is. And that is what is important. The most important aspect of ethics is performing the right action and avoiding the wrong action. The rest, including theories, are secondary. One day, while driving to college, I am running late. I come to a traffic signal and break the signal, which has turned red. A policeman stops me and I quickly pipe in, "I'm sorry, but I was running late for the class." The policeman responds, "Now, if everyone was running late for duty like you are, and they would break the signal, then traffic signals would become meaningless, wouldn't they?" My reason is consequentialist. I think that the action of breaking the signal is justified because the consequences of it are better, as I will reach the class in time and won't keep the students waiting. The policeman reasons like a duty-bound theorist. He claims that traffic signals are rules that must be obeyed in order to maintain order in the flow of traffic and to avoid accidents. So, rules must be obeyed. In ethics, intuition is very important. So, appeal to your intuition. Who is right according to you, the policeman or I? Now, let us alter the circumstances a little. Suppose I have picked up a beggar woman on the way to college who had fallen on the road and was bleeding. I am rushing her to the hospital. Time is of essence. This time I respond, "I am rushing this woman to the hospital as she fell down and is bleeding." Now this time the policeman would probably respond, "All right, I can see the exception. Go ahead." The policeman may actually help out by calling the ambulance on the spot. In this case, I am again using consequentialism, as the consequences of breaking the signal are better than the consequences of not breaking the signal. The policeman holds on to the duty-bound ethics, but admits that there can be exceptions. In fact, police cars and motorcycles, ambulances and fire brigades are allowed to break signals, and I am in circumstances which fall under the same category. It is important to realize that circumstances are always essential to making an ethical decision of what is the right thing to do. If I had been running late for class because I was busy exchanging messages with a very close friend of mine before starting from home, then my action of breaking the signal would hardly be justified. In the circumstance of my taking the beggar woman to the hospital, the policeman is not likely to say that someone else could have taken this woman to the hospital. On the contrary, he thinks I am a morally upright person in doing such a deed as a good citizen. Now let us come to Arjuna's dilemma. If he is a consequentialist, then if he joins the battle, he will end up killing so many of his relatives and teachers, which will cause pain not only to the families of the victims but to him as well, and perhaps to his brothers as well. If he doesn't join the battle, then more of his immediate family members would die. Immorality will prevail, and that would cause even more pain. So, it seems that the act of joining the battle is better. If Arjuna is a duty-bound ethicist, then he asks, what would anyone in my situation do? He reasons that he will be fighting on his brother's side in a righteous battle against his cousins. Then he should join the battle and not stay on the sidelines, especially because he is also the greatest archer, and his joining the battle will produce a greater chance of winning on the side of the right. Hence, it becomes Arjuna's duty to join the battle on the side of the right, and that is the side of the Pandavas. Suppose it was another brother instead of Arjuna, who was a bad archer, and his joining the battle or not would not make much difference to the result of the battle. Then he may not have a duty to join the battle as Arjuna does. He might nonetheless have a duty as a Kshatriya to join the battle. Please note that bringing the possible result of the battle into the circumstances is not a consequentialist move, but it can be done in a duty-bound approach as well. The purpose of entering a battle is to win and not just to enter the battle. If there is someone on the side of the Pandavas whose joining the battle may actually make the chances of winning less, surely it will be his duty not to enter the battle. Similarly, the verse Karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phal heturbhu ma te sangostava karmani, that is, one has control only over the action which one is supposed to perform, not on the consequences of the action. One should therefore focus only on the action and not focus on the fruits of the consequences of the action. At the same time, one should not be attached to inaction. It is misinterpreted to mean that one should never think of the consequences of an action. What the passage says clearly is that when performing an action, one should not perform the action for the reward resulting from the consequences of the action. So, the reward is not important, which does not mean that the consequences are not important. The core of philosophy is to make proper distinctions. When we ignore such clear distinctions, we misinterpret, and in this case, we misinterpret the Bhagavad Gita's essential passage of Nishkam Karma. What is interesting about duty-bound ethics is that it arises out of a situation with complex circumstances. So, it does not universally apply to all situations, but only to situations that are exactly similar. Suppose that instead of Arjuna, it is another brother who is not a good archer at all, and it will make no difference whether he joins the battle or sits on the sidelines. This brother, hence, may not reach the same decision. However, being a Kshatriya, he has the duty to fight. Let us then suppose it is someone else on the Pandava's side who is a Brahmin and a bad archer. Then he may have no duty to fight the battle at all. The Bhagavad Gita, if read carefully, breaks a lot of preconceptions or stereotypes we have, such as only Kshatriyas have a duty to fight. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, people from almost all castes were fighting. Let me emphasize again, duty-bound ethics makes it a duty of Arjuna to join and fight the battle on the side of the Pandavas, because everyone under exactly the same circumstances of being the best archer as Arjuna would have the duty to join the battle on the side of the right, the side of the Pandavas. In effect, this duty-boundedness applies only to Arjuna, because no one else practically will be under the same circumstances as Arjuna. For example, there can be only one best archer, but the phrase "what if everyone ... is a theoretical construction of reason which becomes the justification for the individual action of Arjuna. I'm saying that it is a common sense reasoning that we all use. Consistency is the most important element of ethical action, and this is why the phrase "what will anyone else in my circumstances do" is required for consistency. I cannot say that it is right for me to act in the way I'm doing, but someone else or I at another time in exactly the same circumstances will say that this act is not right and should not be performed. I hope that you can see that the fact that practically no one else will be in the same circumstances is not significant to the reasoning. And we don't have to be ethical theorists to realize this. It is simple common sense reasoning. I cannot say that it is right for me to fly in business class because I can afford to do that and I work hard. But it is not all right for my friend to do so when she is in the same circumstances. She can afford it and has worked hard. I give such an example because we ordinarily do criticize others' behavior in certain circumstances, but overlook our own behavior under the same circumstances. This is inconsistency which has no place in ethics. The Bhagavad Gita ethics is very much akin to duty-bound ethics and not to consequentialist ethics. However, the Bhagavad Gita theory of ethics is much more than duty-bound ethics, and it is a great contribution to ethics which neither Indians nor Westerners have realized to its full potential. There is a recurring problem in ethics since the time of Socrates. Socrates said that no one does wrong willingly and knowingly. This means that all humans by nature are good, so they cannot perform a wrong action. So whenever an agent performs a wrong action, then she or he either is lacking full knowledge of the situation or of the world in general, or she or he cannot exercise her or his free will fully and is being forced to do so in some way. Suppose someone in a remote place is taken to the nearest doctor with extreme weakness. The doctor gives the patient glucose through IV and the patient gets worse because he is highly diabetic, which neither the patient nor the doctor knew. So the doctor did a wrong action because he did not have full knowledge. This may not happen much these days, but it used to happen all the time. Suppose I'm walking down the street and someone puts a gun in my back and says, "Come with me." He walks into a store and with the gun in my bag gives me a gun and tells me to put it to the cashier and ask for the money in the cash box. I have now committed robbery, a wrong act. But I have done it unwillingly, as I was under threat of life if I did not do so. Now, Aristotle said that no matter how sophisticated a theory of knowledge and volition we have, there will always be a gap between what a person knows and has the will to do the right thing and actually doing the right thing. In other words, even if the person knows that he has the will to do A and A is the right action, the person chooses to do B, which is the wrong action. This is the problem of akrasia or weakness of will, which it is commonly called. Now, let us look at the ethical theory in the Bhagavad Gita and see how it fares. First, in what choice should Arjuna make, and second on how to avoid akrasya or weakness of will. This theory is built up throughout the 17 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, reaching its culmination point in chapter 18. What we have by the middle of chapter 18 is a criteria for the performance of right action. This is a very complex criterion which tells us first what an ethical action is, second what a right action is, and third what is required for the performance of the right action. And this makes the criterion complete and comprehensive. Not every action is an ethical action. Choosing a flavor of ice cream or even choosing whom to marry may not be an ethical action. But the choice for Arjuna is clearly a choice of an ethical action. The Bhagavad Gita has a three-tiered concept of self and agent. The self one, where the body is predominant, this is the tamasika stage of dullness. Self two is where the mind rules over the body, and it is the rajasika stage of passion. Now self three is the sattvic stage of goodness, in which the soul rules over the mind and the body. The agent of any ethical action must be self three, which is also connected to the divine even though resting in the body. Now this is the key to why the discourse is being given to a Kshatriya like Arjuna. The soul does not have a varna. Self 3 has a varna because it is this worldly person with the mind and body, though the soul of the self is not this worldly, mortal, but immortal, just residing in this particular body and mind. Those who have already joined the battle on the side of the right do not need this discourse, but Arjuna does, because he was caught in an ethical dilemma, which could only be cleared up by Krishna through this long discourse. This is not because the others are more knowledgeable than Arjuna, but the others have not been sincere about reflecting on the situation which Arjuna has, and that is why Arjuna is to be admired. At the end, Arjuna realizes that it is his self 3 which should make the decision, as this is the proper agent of action, whereas the self 2 or the mind controlling body is simply the seat of action, whereas self 3 is the soul guiding the mind and the body, like the chariot driver. It should be a decision not out of dullness or passion, but out of reason and goodness alone. There are several levels of goodness that are required in the assessment of right action. These are knowledge and understanding of goodness, pursuit of happiness and goodness of the soul, not in pleasures of the body or passions of the mind. Also, the agent, that is self 3, of the individual must be good, which means that the soul must be governing over the mind and body, and the action to be performed itself must be good, as is the case with Arjuna's joining the battle. Further, the right action is obligatory to perform. So far, we have given the criterion for what is the right action, because if an action is obligatory, then we must perform it. If a promise is made, one must keep the promise by performing what is obligatory to perform. The last condition is a link towards the performance of right action. Further, conditions for the performance of right action are prescribed in earlier chapters and in the final chapter. The agent must have the right instruments to perform the right action. Since Arjuna is the best archer, he surely has the right instruments for fighting the battle against the Kauravas. The agent must also be sincerely making the best efforts in the performance of the right action. Again, with Arjuna's training, his sincerity to make best efforts is guaranteed, and with the enlightenment he has gained at the end of the discourse, he will be doubly sincere in making all his efforts now. Further, the agent must be steadfast, for which he will have to remain at the level of the soul and goodness, and keep on battling even if the body and mind get tired. Finally, there is a clincher. Action is necessary. Sitting on the sidelines is not an action. Arjuna must hence fight the battle on the side of the Pandavas or on the side of the Kauravas. But he can only fight on the side of the Pandavas, because in the earlier necessary conditions he has already decided that this is the right action. So he cannot perform the wrong action of fighting for the Kauravas. The gap of Akrasya is narrowed to a hair's breadth because of these last four very practical conditions which are missing in most, if not all, ethical theories. It is also clearly stated in the last chapter by Krishna that despite the necessity to fight the battle on the side of the Pandavas that Arjuna now knows and understands, Arjuna still has to make the choice of implementing it. The last four practical conditions lead him to the actual performance of the action, and there is no longer a gap to mind. This is where the ethics of the Bhagavad Gita is superior to any consequentialist or duty-bound theory of action, as it almost guarantees the performance of right action, whereas all other theories leave a gap in the transition from the knowledge, understanding and justification of a right action to the performance of that very action. Now let me come back to where I started this lecture. What does a Hindu mean when she or he says putting her or his hand on the Bhagavad Gita? I will tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. To carry forth on this oath, she or he should actually recite the whole of the Bhagavad Gita in court. But the court does not have time for this. What they are interested in is truthful evidence from the witness. The witness, as a Hindu, then will use the Bhagavad Gita to be complete, comprehensive, righteous and do the morally right thing. So, she or he will not cover up anything but tell the court exactly what happened. In doing so, she or he will be a good citizen as well as a good Hindu. Every Hindu, regardless of caste or occupation, must hence understand the Bhagavad Gita, and only then can she or he be an authentic moral agent, making her or his decisions and not falling into the gap of Akrasya. Such Hindus are indeed very scarce, but we can all aim to become Hindus in this manner. So, we have seen how the Bhagavad Gita provides the inseparable link not only between philosophy and religion, but also between ethics and religion. And it is clear, whatever may be the case in other religions, that in Hinduism, religious ethics is not separate from philosophical ethics. Religious ethics in Hinduism is not an ethics of following commandments or rules in a strict manner, but it is a philosophical ethics of making decisions by being the agent of action with the soul governing the mind and body, and making the decision on a complex set of criteria of what a right action is and how to perform the right action. which is exactly what Arjuna does, and it is exactly what each and every Hindu should do. Thank you.